Have you ever missed a walk, a dance, or even a simple grocery trip because your legs just wouldn't keep up with you anymore? If so, you're not alone, and there's hope, because what I'm about to share with you might just change the way you think about healing. And it doesn't involve expensive treatments or endless doctor visits. A few months ago, I met a woman named Gloria Harris at a community health fair in Sacramento. She's a 70-year-old retired nurse, and what she told me that afternoon stopped me in my tracks. Gloria had spent most of her life caring for others, but when her own legs began to fail her, cold feet, restless nights, and painful swelling, she realized she'd ignored her own body for too long. But instead of giving up, she discovered something remarkable. A simple 10-minute routine a doctor taught her that restored circulation in her legs and brought back the strength she thought she'd lost forever. It's not a miracle. It's not magic. It's science, and it's something anyone can do. Have you ever felt the same way? That your body is slowing down faster than your spirit? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But before I tell you about the doctor's 10-minute routine that changed her life, let's go back and see how she reached that point. What she did, and what she didn't do. If you believe everyone deserves a second chance at good health, don't forget to subscribe. Gloria Harris was born in the summer of 1955 in a quiet Sacramento neighborhood where children still played barefoot on the sidewalks until dusk. Her father, Raymond, was a mail carrier, a man who knew every house on their block by heart. Her mother, Eloise, was a homemaker who filled their home with the smell of cornbread and the sound of gospel music drifting through an old radio on the kitchen counter. From a young age, Gloria was curious, always asking questions others overlooked. She'd follow her father to the porch steps, asking what made his knees ache after a long day of walking. He'd laugh it off, saying, "That's just part of getting older, sweetheart." But those words stuck with her more than he knew. School came easy for Gloria, but she wasn't the loud or popular kind. She was the listener, the one who noticed when her classmate scraped his knee or when her teacher's hands trembled as she wrote on the chalkboard. She had a quiet tenderness, the kind that made others feel safe just being near her. Her childhood was simple. No fancy vacations or big dreams of fame, but it was rich in heart. Summers were spent picking oranges in her uncle's orchard, and winters meant warm cocoa beside her grandmother, who'd tell her, "Always keep your hands busy and your heart kind." That phrase would shape everything she became. One memory, though, stood out above the rest. The day she helped a neighbor's cat give birth in an old cardboard box. Watching life enter the world for the first time, she realized something deep inside her. She wanted to care for others, not just people, not just animals, but life itself. It was the first spark of what would later become her calling. As Gloria entered her teenage years, the world around her began to shift. It was the early 1970s, a time when Sacramento was buzzing with change, new music, and new dreams. But for Gloria, the world still revolved around her family and her small circle of friends from high school. She wasn't the rebellious kind, though she often felt like she lived between two worlds. One that wanted her to stay safe and small, and another whispering for her to go out and do something meaningful. Her mother wanted her to settle down early, maybe find a steady husband and raise a family. But Gloria's heart pulled her toward something else, the human heart itself. She wanted to know why people got sick, and more importantly, how to make them better. During her senior year, one of her classmates, a boy named Marcus, collapsed during gym class. Gloria was the first to rush to his side, her hands trembling as she tried to help, while the teacher called for the nurse. Marcus recovered, but that day lit something powerful in her. She realized she didn't want to stand by when someone was hurting. She wanted to know what to do. Her friends teased her for being too serious, But Gloria didn't mind. She spent her weekends volunteering at the local church clinic, wiping tables and watching the nurses move with calm precision. Their steady hands fascinated her. Their kindness inspired her. And late at night, while her friends dreamed of dances and road trips, Gloria would sit under her reading lamp, poring over anatomy books borrowed from the library. She didn't know it yet, but those quiet nights were the first steps on a long path that would lead her to a life of service. And one day, to the same hospital where her own battles would begin. When Gloria graduated high school in 1973, she was the first in her family to attend college. Nursing school wasn't glamorous. Long hours, sleepless nights, and a heart that often broke before it healed. But she loved every second of it. The smell of antiseptic, the soft hum of hospital machines, the sight of people slowly getting better. It all gave her purpose. Her first job was at a local medical center in downtown Sacramento. She was barely 22 when she put on her crisp white uniform for the first time. Her parents came to see her off that morning, her father with tears he tried to hide, her mother holding her hand a little too long. Life moved quickly after that. Between endless shifts and constant learning, Gloria barely had time for herself. Until she met James Harris, a soft-spoken paramedic with a smile that could calm any storm. They met one night in the ER when she was helping a patient he'd brought in. Their connection was instant, the kind that doesn't need many words. Within 2 years, they were married. But dreams rarely unfold without detours. Just as their life began to take shape, James was called to work long hours across town, and Gloria's shifts grew heavier. The nights grew quiet. The laughter that once filled their small apartment was replaced by exhaustion. Still, she kept pushing. For her patients, for her family, for the life she believed in. And every morning, she'd look in the mirror, tired but determined, whispering, "One more day, Gloria. Just one more day." She had no idea that this drive, this endless devotion, would one day take its toll on her own body. By her early 30s, Gloria had become everything she once dreamed of. A skilled nurse, a loving wife, and soon, a mother. She and James bought a small, cream-colored house on the outskirts of Sacramento, with a rose bush by the porch and a tire swing in the front yard. Life wasn't easy, but it was full, and for Gloria, that was enough. Their first child, Angela, was born on a rainy afternoon in 1985. Gloria still remembered the tears in James's eyes when he first held their baby girl. A few years later came David, their quiet, thoughtful boy who loved to sit beside Gloria while she read medical journals, pretending to understand. Gloria's days blurred together. Hospital shifts that ran late into the night. Mornings spent packing lunches, and weekends filled with church picnics and birthday candles. Her heart was always full, but her body began to whisper small warnings. Swollen ankles after long shifts, a dull heaviness in her legs, and a tiredness that lingered even after sleep. Still, she brushed it off. Nurses are taught to care for others before themselves. And Gloria lived by that rule. She'd say, "I'll rest later. There are people who need me right now." One evening, after a particularly long day at the hospital, she came home to find James fixing the leaky kitchen faucet, their kids doing homework on the floor. Gloria paused at the doorway, taking it all in, the mess, the laughter, the smell of dinner, and, for a brief moment, she felt pure gratitude. Life wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful. And though her body had started to ache, her spirit remained unshaken. She had no idea that the years of standing, rushing, and forgetting her own needs would come back to test her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Life has a way of teaching us lessons, sometimes gently, sometimes with storms. For Gloria, those storms began quietly. In her late 40s, the The hospital she'd worked at for nearly 2 decades faced budget cuts. Longtime staff were laid off, shifts were doubled, and the workload tripled. Gloria often skipped meals, skipped breaks, and stood for 12 hours straight. By the time she got home, her legs would feel like lead. She'd soak them in warm water, massage them gently, and tell herself it was nothing, just fatigue. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Her husband, James, was in an accident while on duty. A reckless driver ran a red light, leaving him hospitalized for weeks. Though he eventually recovered, the emotional toll on their family was deep. Gloria had always been the strong one, the caregiver. But now, she had to care for everyone at once. Money grew tight. The mortgage payments loomed. Angela left for college, and David started working part-time to help. Through it all, Gloria smiled for her family. But at night, when no one was watching, she'd sit on the edge of her bed, rubbing her swollen calves, whispering prayers she didn't have the strength to finish. The exhaustion seeped into her bones. She began noticing tingling in her feet, occasional numbness, and strange discoloration in her legs. But like so many who spend their lives helping others, she ignored the signs. One Sunday morning, while preparing breakfast, her legs suddenly gave out. She didn't fall, but she felt a surge of weakness so intense it scared her. She sat down, trembling, staring at the veins beneath her skin. For the first time, Gloria realized something she'd always avoided. She couldn't keep going like this. That moment marked a silent turning point, one that would eventually lead her to the doctor whose 10-minute routine would change her life forever. After the challenges of her 40s, Gloria slowly found her footing again. James recovered enough to return to part-time work, and both of their children found success. Angela became a teacher, and David joined the Air Force. With the kids grown and life beginning to steady, Gloria finally had a chance to focus on herself. Or at least, that's what she told everyone. In truth, she filled every empty space with more work. When her hospital merged with a larger network, she was offered a position as head nurse, a role that came with pride, prestige, and pressure. She couldn't say no. Her days turned into 12-hour marathons, mentoring younger nurses, managing patients, handling emergencies. Her name became known in the hospital corridors. Nurse Harris, the rock everyone can depend on. But being everyone's rock came with a cost. She ignored the dull ache in her legs that had started to creep up to her knees. She laughed off the fatigue that lingered for days. Even when her shoes felt tighter and her ankles swelled, she dismissed it as just another long shift. The truth was simple, though she didn't want to admit it. Gloria was burning out, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. One evening, as she left the hospital after a 14-hour shift, she stood in the parking lot, gazing at the sunset over the Sacramento skyline. Her legs throbbed so badly that she leaned against her car for support. And as she stood there watching the fading light, a thought crossed her mind. Quiet, but sharp. If I keep going like this, I won't make it to retirement. But she pushed that thought away, the same way she always had, with a brave smile and the promise of one more day. She didn't know it yet, but those endless one more days were slowly leading her toward a breaking point, one that would finally force her to listen to her own body. By the time Gloria reached her mid-50s, life had entered a gentler rhythm, or at least that's what she hoped for. Angela was married and living in Oregon. David had a family of his own in Texas, and Gloria finally decided to retire after more than 30 years in nursing. At first, retirement felt like freedom. She could finally sleep in, cook breakfast slowly, tend to her rose bushes, and take long walks around the neighborhood. But as the months passed, she began to feel something unexpected. Stillness. Too much of it. The woman who'd spent her life in constant motion now found herself standing still. And in that stillness, her body began to speak louder. The heaviness in her legs grew worse. Some mornings, she woke up with throbbing pain that made it hard to stand. The veins on her calves darkened, her feet felt cold, and the tingling that once came and went now stayed for hours. Gloria tried to stay positive. She joined a seniors' exercise class at the community center, but after a few sessions, her legs hurt so badly she could barely walk to her car. She smiled through it, but when she got home, she cried quietly on the couch, massaging her feet and whispering, "Lord, please just give me a little strength." Her husband, James, noticed. He'd watch her shuffle slowly from the kitchen to the garden, pausing every few steps. "You've taken care of everyone your whole life," he said softly one night. "It's time someone takes care of you." But Gloria wasn't ready to admit weakness. Not yet. She was the strong one, the healer, the helper. The thought of becoming the patient frightened her, yet deep inside, she knew a change was coming. And that change would soon arrive in the form of a wake-up call she couldn't ignore. Retirement was supposed to be peaceful, a reward after decades of serving others. But for Gloria, her 60s became a strange mix of nostalgia and pain. She often sat by the kitchen window, sipping tea and watching the world go by, remembering her hospital days, the soft beeping of monitors, the comforting scent of antiseptic, and the endless footsteps echoing down white halls. But now, her own footsteps had slowed. Her legs, once strong enough to stand through double shifts, now ached after just a few minutes of walking. The swelling came more often, her veins more visible. She tried to hide it from James, pulling down her pant legs when she caught him looking, but he saw it all. One autumn afternoon, while planting tulips in her garden, Gloria felt a sharp pain shoot through her calf. It was as if her leg had locked up from the inside. She tried to brush it off, but the pain didn't fade. It deepened. That night, her leg throbbed so fiercely that she couldn't sleep. The next morning, she looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Pale face, tired eyes, and legs that seemed foreign, heavy, and restless. Her nurse's instinct whispered what she'd been denying for years. Her circulation was failing. The reality sank in one evening when her granddaughter asked her to dance during a family barbecue. Gloria smiled, stood up, and tried to move. But her legs betrayed her. Within seconds, she had to sit down, embarrassed and heartbroken. That night, sitting alone on the porch, she whispered, "How did I spend my whole life fixing others and forget to fix myself?" It was a painful truth, but also a quiet beginning, because sometimes slowing down is what finally forces us to listen. The pain didn't just stay. It grew. Over the next few months, Gloria's condition worsened. Her legs would swell by midday, turning red and heavy. Sleep became difficult because of the constant tingling. Walking to the mailbox left her breathless. She started canceling her morning walks, avoiding social events, and even skipping church, something she'd never done before. She tried compression socks, herbal ointments, and every remedy she could find online. Nothing worked. Each night, she'd sit on the couch, feet elevated on a pillow, tears quietly streaming down her cheeks while the TV hummed in the background. Then came the night that changed everything. It was just past midnight. James had gone to bed, and Gloria was sitting in her recliner, massaging her legs like always. Suddenly, a stabbing pain shot up her thigh, sharper than anything she'd felt before. It was terrifying. Her hands shook as she tried to stand, but her left leg gave out. James rushed in, panicked. "We're going to the ER," he said firmly. At the hospital, after several tests, the doctor looked at her with concern. "Mrs. Harris," he said, "your circulation is severely restricted. If we don't improve blood flow soon, it could lead to serious complications." The words hit her like a blow. For the first time in her life, Gloria wasn't the nurse. She was the patient. She spent the next few days in a quiet hospital room, staring out the window, thinking about all the people she had helped over the years and how she'd ignored the one person who needed her care the most. When the doctor returned to discuss her recovery, he mentioned something that would soon become the turning point of her entire journey. A simple 10-minute daily routine that could restore her circulation naturally. At first, Gloria didn't believe it could help, but something in his tone, calm, confident, and sincere, made her listen. And that's where her new chapter truly began. Gloria's recovery period started quietly. Just her husband, and a small hospital room filled with the faint hum of medical machines. But what stood out most wasn't the medication or the IV drip. It was the doctor who visited her every morning. His name was Dr. Matthew Collins, a vascular specialist with silver hair, kind eyes, and the calm patience of someone who had seen too many people wait too long before taking care of themselves. One morning, as he reviewed her chart, he looked at her and said, "Mrs. Harris, you spent your life helping others heal. Now it's your turn, and we're going to start small. Just 10 minutes a day." Gloria gave him a doubtful smile. 10 minutes, doctor? I've tried everything. What could 10 minutes possibly do?" He chuckled softly. "More than you think. It's about circulation, not strain. The body just needs a reminder to move blood the way it used to." He explained that her symptoms, swelling, cold feet, cramps, and discoloration, were signs of poor vascular flow, common in people who'd spent years on their feet. But instead of medication, he recommended a 10-minute routine built around gentle movements that combined deep breathing, calf raises, ankle flexes, and leg elevation. It was developed by cardiologists and used in rehabilitation programs across the U.S. to stimulate blood flow naturally. He even cited a study from the American Heart Association, which found that just 10 minutes of light leg movement daily could significantly improve lower limb circulation and reduce the risk of vascular blockages in adults over 60. Gloria was skeptical but curious. 10 minutes that she could manage. No pills, no long therapy sessions, just her and a chair. Dr. Collins smiled and said, "Try it for 2 weeks. Your body will remember what it's capable of." And that's exactly what she did. The first morning Gloria tried the doctor's routine. She did it sitting by her window, the same window where she once watched the world pass her by. The sun had just started to rise, painting the Sacramento sky in soft gold. She began with deep breathing, just as Dr. Collins instructed. Slow inhales through the nose, long exhales through the mouth. Then came gentle ankle rolls, calf stretches, and seated marches to activate blood flow. Finally, she lay down and elevated her legs on 2 firm pillows, closing her eyes as she felt the faint pulsing in her calves, a rhythm she hadn't noticed in years. The first few days were hard. Her legs cramped, and she doubted it would ever make a difference. But she stayed with it. 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes before bed. Within a week, she noticed something. The heaviness began to lift. Her feet no longer felt like ice. By the 3rd week, Gloria could walk to the mailbox without stopping. By the end of the month, she joined her husband on short evening walks again. Slow, but steady. Each step felt like a quiet victory. What surprised her most wasn't just the physical relief. It was the peace. Those 10 minutes became her sacred time. Time to breathe, to reflect, to thank her body for carrying her through life, even when she hadn't treated it kindly. Her mood brightened, her energy returned, and for the first time in years, she felt hopeful. Gloria began sharing the routine with friends from her church group, many of whom struggled with similar issues. "If I can do it," she'd tell them, "anyone can." If you've ever tried something similar, a simple habit that changed your health, share your story in the comments below. You never know who might need to hear it. 6 months passed since Gloria began the doctor's 10-minute circulation routine, and by then, she was a different woman, not just in body, but in spirit. Her mornings no longer started with pain or dread. She'd wake up before sunrise, put on her soft slippers, and sit by the window where the first light touched her face. The same window where she once sat hopeless now became her place of renewal. With every slow stretch, every breath, every pulse she felt returning in her legs, Gloria found herself healing, not only from poor circulation, but from years of neglecting her own well-being. One afternoon, her granddaughter visited again, the same little girl who once asked her to dance. This time, when the child extended her small hand, Gloria smiled, stood up, and joined her. The music was soft, the steps were small, but for Gloria, it felt like flying. James watched from the kitchen doorway, wiping away a quiet tear. Her doctor was amazed at her progress. The swelling had nearly vanished, the discoloration faded, and her energy levels had returned. Dr. Collins told her, "You're proof that it's never too late to remind the body how to heal itself." But Gloria didn't see it as a miracle. She saw it as a lesson. A reminder that healing doesn't always come from hospitals or medicine. Sometimes it comes from the smallest acts of care, done consistently and with love. She often told her friends, "I spent my life helping others walk again. I never thought I'd have to teach myself how to do the same." She said she wished she'd listened to her body sooner, but she's grateful she finally did. If this story inspired you, like this video, and if you believe in second chances, don't forget to subscribe. Because just like Gloria, it's never too late to start your own healing journey. You know, every person I meet teaches me something new about life. And Gloria's story reminded me that healing doesn't begin with a doctor's visit. It begins with listening to your body, your breath, and your heart. Sometimes, the smallest routines can bring back the biggest parts of who we are. If Gloria's journey touched your heart, give this video a like and share it with someone who might need a little hope today. And if you believe it's never too late to heal, to change, or to start again, then subscribe to this channel, because there are so many more real stories like this waiting to be told. Thanks for listening, my friends. Until next time, stay healthy, stay hopeful, and never stop believing that your best days can still be ahead of you.